Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video. And in this video we are here docked at the ISS. This is just going to be a fairly simple, straightforward deorbit reentry and landing. Deorbit reentry and landing is always fun, kind of a fairly quick flight. And I don't really use the XR5 that much, so I thought I would use the XR5 in this video just to do something a little bit different. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me jump in, switch camera views, and jump into the flight deck of the XR5 and get things set up. Now the way I like to do this is to start by bringing up the base sync MFD. It's a very useful MFD. And we're going to target, where do we want to go? Let's target Carl Sagan Space Center. And we can see that on our current orbit, we are going to pass 2,500, almost 2,600 kilometers from it. So let's warp time forward by a bunch of orbits until we are going to be closer. We could take this one here that's only 500 kilometers, but we'll go ahead and go around a bit more, see if we can find something a little bit better than that even. It might take 10, 20 orbits sometimes. You have to go around a bunch of times before you find one that's good. But the less cross range you have to deal with, it kind of simplifies the flight a little bit. So just warping time forward here to 1,000. And hopefully I won't get any orbiter crashes. I'm not sure what that lag's coming from. I usually don't really get too much lag, but I guess at 1,000x it's to be expected that you'll get some. So that one's 800 kilometers. That's still a bit far out. This is getting better, except it seems like it's going to trend upward as it climbs up. I started flying with non-spherical gravity sources enabled, and having non-spherical gravity sources enabled means that your predictions they're not very accurate out into the future. Like if you bring up orbit MFD, you'll see your apoapsis and your periapsis constantly floating around the planet. So it makes things a little bit more difficult, but it increases the accuracy of IMFD. And since I've started using IMFD a bit more, I went ahead and turned on that perturbation. All right, this one looks really good. So we'll take that. It looks like it's going to be more like 100 kilometers or something by the time it gets up here, but nevertheless, that will be the opportunity that we'll take, because I don't think it's going to get any better than that. But you'll notice, like when it started off, it was at 20 kilometers, but as we go forward and our predictions get more accurate, it's increasing. So actually, it might even be a couple 100 kilometers by the time we get all the way around. But that's the first thing I like to do, is just find a good time to go. So we're going to go around one more orbit, and we are now one orbit away from Carl Sagan Space Center. So it's time to undock, and we'll use the Control D hotkey for that.
Undocking confirmed. Undocking rotation confirmed. Translation.
And like usual, we'll put in some translation just to push ourselves away. Although our translations might be set. Yeah, it's set for the docking config. So that's just something to note. That's actually okay in this case, because it does mean that, relative to the... actually, let me think about it. Actually, I want to shut them off.
RCS config normal.
What that does, since the docking port for the XR5 is on its back, that means when you're wanting to thrust, forward toward the ISS, like you normally would when the nose cone, when the docking port's on the nose cone, when you thrust forward, it would be a different attitude control. So turning docking CFG on just makes all the translation thrusters behave like they would as if the docking port were on the nose. So we're no longer in a docking mode, so we want to turn that off. Okay, let's again just put in a little bit of RCS, push ourselves away, That's probably sufficient. And let's close up that docking port nose cone. Retro doors are open, so we'll hit Control / to close those as well. And once that docking port's closed, use a little time warp to speed that up. Then we will turn the APU back off. Okay, let me switch back over to the larger view. These MFDs just show up a whole lot better in the video playback. So now we're going to go halfway around, and we'll do our deorbit burn at that point. Technically, that is the most efficient time to do the burn because you're on the opposite side from the base, and you use slightly less DV. You can go past it, or you could even do the deorbit burn a little before. You would use just a little bit more DV if you did it that way. So whatever you prefer. So let's go ahead now then and warp time forward. And also, if we want, when we cross one of these nodes, when we cross this node or cross that node, we can do a base alignment. One thing to note about doing a base alignment before you do the deorbit burn is, let's say we do the base alignment here and we bring the distance all the way down to 0. When we then do the deorbit burn, it's going to have an impact on our distance off base. So really, you would be better off skipping this node and doing your base alignment over there if you want to even do a base alignment. With this little bit of cross range, we don't really need to. Let's go around. And let's get ready to do this burn. So let's get into the retrograde position. And while that's doing its thing, I'm going to bring up burn time calculator. And we're going to go to manual mode. And it takes about 100 dV to bring your orbit, to bring your periapsis down to about 40 kilometers, which is about where we want it to be. What's that spot there? That's weird. Guess it's the ISS. So we'll put in DV 100, and we don't even have to guess on that. We can actually do a calculation. I suppose I can show that. Let me bring up another tab here, except it's on the wrong screen. Let me, oops. Let me bring this down so we can see it on the screen. If I go to, I got a bunch of little calculators that I've made over the years. If we put in the cost to, we can calculate what we actually need to lower our orbit. So let's select Earth and put in our current periapsis altitude. So we'll bring up orbit MFD, and that's going to be 357.2. And our APA, which is 378.9. And let's say our target altitude is, 30 kilometers is good. So this calculator tells us if we want to lower our PEA down to 30 kilometers, then it would require a 96.43 meter burn. That's if we do the burn at apoapsis. And we aren't actually going to be doing that burn at apoapsis. It's actually going to be closer to our periapsis. So more likely we would need to we'll need closer to this number, closer to 102 meters per second. So let's actually put that in and see how accurate our calculation is. Was that 102.71. Now we're going to be probably a little bit past periapsis, so it probably won't be exact, but it'll be really close. So let's bring base sync back up on this side so we can see when we're actually ready to do the burn. And what I watch for, again, I've said this in many videos, I just watch for when this number stops counting up and starts counting down. That's when you know you're halfway around. And it's right now. And let's just see how close we are to periapsis at the moment. Yeah, we're right at periapsis. So this number should be very, very accurate right now. So we'll do the burn. Burn 102.71 meters per second. We should have a PEA that's about 30 kilometers. Now, again, because I have non-spherical gravity sources enabled, there is a difference, and the difference is about 3 kilometers I've found. So when we actually get around to periapsis, our periapsis would actually be 30. So with non-spherical gravity sources enabled, these numbers aren't completely reliable. But using just a little calculation there, and actually this calculation is fairly in-depth. There's quite a bit going on to figure that out, but it's pretty cool to be able to figure those things out. So that was the ISS over there. All right, so now we're done with Orbit MFD. Let's bring up a couple of different MFDs. One MFD I want to bring up is Load MFD. I saw Video Space Effects have this MFD up in one of his videos that he did, and it's a good idea to bring this up, and I'll show you what it does. It actually puts a gravitational meter in the upper right, but my webcam blocks that, so let me move the webcam real quick. There we go. Now you can see, not a gravitational meter rather, but a G-force. This is how much G we are experiencing. So as we come down through the atmosphere, we can track that, and we don't have to leave this MFD open. Once we hit that display to put it up there, it will stay there. Okay, so again, back to base sync for the time being, and we're done with burn time calculator. So we're halfway around, and if we want, again, we can come to this point and do a little bit of base correction. I'm not going to, though, because I don't feel it's worth the time and the effort, considering that we're only 200 kilometers off from the base.
Rotation.
Let's go ahead and rotate around to forward view, prograde. And now we'll warp time forward to entry interface, which is coming up in it'll be 120 kilometers, so we still got a ways to go down. But right here at this point, this would be the time to do your base alignment, and it would require a plane change. You can see here PLC, that's plane change of 12.417 seconds using the full power of the main engines in the normal minus position. So when TN was 6, because you want to balance the burn, 6 on one side, 6 on the other, you would do that burn in the anti-normal position.
Translation.
And let me think here. We're at entry interface now, so let's do our reentry check. Need to get in the habit of doing this. I know what I need to close, but I just want to get in the habit of doing this.
Warning. Re-entry check failed.
So pressing 9 on the top of the keyboard, not the numeric keypad, but the top of the keyboard, it brings up that re-entry check display and tells us that the radiator is still deployed. So I'll turn the APU on, close the radiator. And let me bring up a different display on the secondary display. That number 4 isn't too useful. Although these numbers are really hard to see in the video playback.
Mach 27 plus.
Okay, we've got
Re-entry check. All systems green.
Got the radiator closed. The re-entry check has passed. Now we can bring up attitude hold MFD, and we're going to go to the set AOA mode, and we're just going to put in a default sort of standard number of about 45, and then from there I'll make adjustments as needed. All right, but we're still at 96 kilometers. We got a little way to go down. We don't really necessarily need to save APU, but we can turn that off for now because we aren't going to be using surface controls yet. So let's rotate up, heads up. Switch over to the surface mode at this point. And I'll put in a little bit of time warp. Actually, now you can start to see that we're starting to experience a little bit of G-force. It's a very small number at this point, but we are starting to feel the pull of Earth's gravity at this point. And hopefully, on a good flight, you would like to keep that number, as low as possible when you're coming down through the atmosphere. If you're getting up into really high G's, then your reentries are just too steep, which is fine if you want to just do it for fun or speed round type of thing. But if you want a slower, more methodical, more realistic type of reentry, then you want to have that number be much lower, 2.5, 3, something like that. Okay, we're now in position, so let's go ahead and engage. Let's turn on the APU. Now engage the attitude hold. And let's figure out which way we're going to have to bank here. We're going to, we need a little bit of cross range correction. So I believe at this point we need to bank to the right, if I'm understanding this part correctly. So let's put in a bunch of bank angle. And while we're doing that, we'll bring up Aerobrake MFD on this side. And we'll target CSSC, change the page, change the projection. And according to Aerobrake, we're coming up short. So that means our angle of attack is too steep at this point, so we want to bring that down. And I can do that by either using these arrows or using the number 8 and 2 on the numeric keypad for the larger adjustment.
Mach 26. Information. APU fuel 80%.
So just taking out a little bit of attitude hold, reducing that number down a bit, so we have a longer glide path to the base. And again, if you watch our G-force up here, taking out a bit more. And being that my AOA is this low, it means I brought my PEA down a bit too much. I should have probably just brought it down to 40. But I wanted to make sure that I had enough time for the cross range glide. You can see that the distance to the base is coming down. It's taking out a little bit more AOA. And I can hear things happening in the atmosphere. Now I'm going to start using Alt 8 to take out just 0.5 at a time, because we're getting really close to our target at this point. And now you can see in the zoomed in box, it's coming into view. So this is about the amount of angle of attack we want. Let's put in some more. Actually, I guess that's too much bank. Let's take out some bank. Just looking over here in the zoomed in view, you can see the prediction the Aerobrake is giving us is showing that we're coming up way south of the base. And I don't want that, so just taking out some of that bank angle to have the prediction more in line. Now it shows we're long, so let's just put in just a little bit more angle of attack with Alt 2. You can see that adjusted it from 34.0 to 34.5. And we'll go all the way to 35 and see how that looks.
Mach 23.
Okay, things are coming along pretty well. I've got a low number here. Let's take a quick peek at the external camera. And we've got quite a ways to go to the base. We're still 4,000 kilometers out. So what we can also do, take out some of that AOA, because it's the predictions now coming up short, and I don't want that. Since we're so far out, we want to make sure that we're at least, getting over to the base, and it doesn't hurt to overshoot it at this point. And then when you get a little bit closer, you know, when your distance is down to like 2,000 kilometers, you can start, you know, increasing your AOA a bit more. That way we'll just get there a little bit faster. We won't lose as much velocity between now and the time we're closer to the base. Okay, there's something else I wanted to bring up. I want to know the runway alignment of CSSC. Unfortunately, GlideSlope 2 doesn't have CSSC in its database, so I can't use it. So let me bring up Spaceport CSSC. So the runway alignment for Carl Sagan Space Center is 9 and 27. So we'll just keep that in mind. So we really want to arrive at the base kind of over to the, you know, west of it or east of it, either way. But coming to the base like that would be bad, because that would be that'd be like a 45-degree angle to the runways. So we don't want that. Let's close that out then and take out some of the bank. And let's just say that we want to arrive west of the base, and we'll plan on landing west to east. So we'll land on runway 9. Taking out some more of that bank angle just to make sure that the prediction shows that we're arriving to the to the west. And you can see what in our temperature display, everything's fine. We are plenty cool. About 3,700 kilometers from the base. We can actually get away with a little bit of time warp. If you press Control F2, you have finer control over your time warp. I wouldn't recommend ever doing 10 when you're in the atmosphere, but if you do 2-3 time warp, the autopilots can keep up with that pretty well, and that will help expedite your,
22.
you know, the glide phase, so it's not quite so boring. Something else I was thinking of, and I forgot to do it, I was going to dump all my main fuel while I was still in orbit.
Mach 21.
Just looking at our distance, we have 3,000 kilometers to go, but we are at 3x time warp, so we'll get there quite fast. And when we get down to maybe 2,000 kilometers here in a couple of seconds, we'll want to start watching our aerobrake prediction a little bit closer. You know, right now it shows we're passing quite a bit to the north west, and we want to tighten that up a little bit. Got a gravitational, or rather g-force of 0.96, about 2,400 kilometers from the base. Prediction looks good.
Mach 17.
And we're doing a bit of a roller coaster ride at the moment. We came down, gained a little bit of lift, and skipped kind of back up a little bit. Now we're coming back down. Again, there's our prediction. We're about 2,000 kilometers out.
Mach 16.
So let's go down to 1x here and just kind of do some adjustments here. We don't want to arrive that far west of the base and have no energy left, so let's take out a little bit more of the AOA, just a little bit, just to make sure that we have enough velocity still when we get there. Okay, we're down to 1,800 kilometers from the base. And I guess we're going to be landing at night. Let's take a look at map MFD. Yep, we're definitely landing at night. The sun is nowhere in sight. Okay, we're down to just 1,600 kilometers from the base. Let's go ahead and go to a time warp of 4. Speed this up a little bit and try to keep this video within that 30-minute.
APU fuel
30-minute time
70%.
frame. I think 30 minutes works out pretty well. If it gets much longer than that, I think videos kind of start to maybe run a little long for
13.
most people. Down to 1,300 kilometers. We are predictions showing that we're arriving west of the base.
Mach 12.
I think that might be a little bit far though, so I'm going to put in a little bit of right bank angle. Start bringing that off base distance down a bit more. Again, I don't want to show up exactly at the base, but this here kind of has us arcing in a bit. That's fine. That's a bit much on the bank angle though. Just about 1,000 kilometers out now, so things happen pretty quickly here at the end.
Mach
Still a bit
11.
much on the bank angle. Just trying to get this prediction how I like, something that looks good to me. Again, arriving to the west of the airport or the base, and still having some velocity left over for, you know, final
Mach
maneuvers.
10.
I'd say that's probably pretty good. Distance off base here is coming down. We don't really need that anymore. Let's bring up surface MFD on that side. It'll be more useful to us at this point. And I wasn't paying attention to how high our G got at its peak. I'll have to look at the video playback to see, but we're at 1.19 right now. This wasn't a real steep reentry, so it never got very high. Our temperature never got much up there at all. In fact, I think it's the backside's so low now we could even open the radiator if we wanted.
Mach 9.
Okay, that prediction's not what I want to see, so let's take out a little bit more AOA. And we're only 750 kilometers out.
Mach 8.
And again, just working with the prediction over here, just trying to make it look more how I want. .600 kilometers to go to the base. And usually when you get down to around 300 kilometers, you can actually see it. If you take a look at the external view, you can see the base. Probably more so at night because you can see the lights and stuff. Let's turn surface controls on.
Off.
Turn rotation off. Get ready to take over manual control here shortly. 500 kilometers to go.
Mach 7.
Nice, comfortable 1G. And prediction looks a little short. So let's just take out just a little bit of angle of attack. But I think it'll be fine. We're very slow at this point, and we're very close to the base, so we'll be able to take over manual control when we get down to, you know, at least 900 meters a second or lower. It's very difficult to have good control
Mach 6.
over the vessel when you're traveling this fast. What'll happen if you try to take over control too soon, your for one thing, your G-force will go crazy. You'll be pulling 4, 5, 6 Gs. So you want to have things slowed down before you take over manual control. That way, as you put in the input into the controls, you're not cramming the vessel really far in one direction or pulling back really hard in another direction. So we're down to 1,600 meters a second. Just a little bit more to go. Take out some more AOA.
Mach 5.
And you can see our vessel is now actually starting to appear in the bottom left of Aerobraking MFD. So we're now within the borders of the zoomed in view. Let's go ahead and close that out. We certainly don't need that anymore. And 345 meters to go to the kilometers to the base. So if you look outside, no, I can't really see it yet. It's out there somewhere. G-force climbed up there for a bit. Now it's coming back down. And that looks pretty good. I still don't see the base. It's out there
Mach
somewhere though.
4.
About 300 kilometers out. Go ahead and take out some more AOA. Just looks like our prediction's coming up a little bit short there. .265 kilometers to go. Somebody turn the lights on. I can't see the base. And now you can see we're kind of going out way past, but that's okay. We'll take over manual control, so this prediction isn't terribly important to me anymore. We're down to about 1,000 meters a second. And we're still 225 kilometers out. So we can even kind of bring the AOA down even more. And the closer this is to zero, the less sudden pop you'll have when you turn off the autopilot. If you go from a 45 or a 50 degree AOA and then turn the autopilot off and then basically wanting to go back to level flight, that's a really harsh nose over maneuver. And if you ever have load MFD up while you're doing that, you'll see that your G-force climbs to 4, 5, 6. It gets really high. 180 kilometers out.
Mach 3.
And I still have no visual on the base, which is surprising because usually you can see it at 300. All right. Let's go ahead and autopilot off, take over manual control, and let's fly to the base. And I'm just putting in a bit of right bank there so I can, it's a little bit, that's a lot, that's way too much though. There we go, that's better. And we're still at 35 kilometers in altitude, so we don't have real tight surface controls quite yet. Throw out the air brake, help slow things down.
information. APU fuel 60%.
I can't believe I can't see the base yet. Oh, there it is. Wow, that's barely visible. It's that spot right there. Okay, just 90 kilometers out. We're at 28 kilometers altitude, 700 meters a second. Let's bring the air brake in for now. Try to watch our G-force here also, even though we're, now down to slower velocities and lower altitude, we can still pull some very high Gs if we're not watching that. Come back out of that turn because we're past 90 degrees, so the base should be below us basically. We might have to go past it and turn around and come back in. Throw the air brake back out, slow things down.
Mach 2.
Okay, let's kind of point the nose into the ground a bit here so we can hopefully find our target. Oh boy, that is... Okay, we're not going to land on 9. We're going, I don't think. Not sure if I can make that work. Yeah, I think I can. Quite a bit harder to identify the base because there aren't any landmarks around, because it's all ocean around the base. And normally I would use Glide Slope 2 to help me get aligned with the runway, but again, it's not, this base isn't in the database for
Subsonic.
Glide Slope 2. Bring the air brake back in so we don't slow down too much. So 23 kilometers out, and probably a good portion of that is just altitude. And just a mental reminder to myself that I'm in the XR5 and not the XR2. Now we have runway lights. Whole lot easier to land when you can see where you're going. Actually, just a quick check. Let me go down to 0.1x for a second. I just want to bring up surface MFD real quick and see if it... I'll have to try that another time. I don't have time for it right now. I just wanted to see if it could help me see the alignment of the base. Try that again. There we go. Oops, forgot to go back to real time. I guess it doesn't really show runways, or I'm not sure if it does. Maybe I'm just not zoomed out enough.
5,000.
All right, landing time. Pay attention. Wow, even with a 30-degree down pitch, we're still losing
4,000.
airspeed. Definitely not the XR2.
$3,000.
Sorry this video went so far over 30 minutes. I thought that I could do a whole deorbit reentry and landing right at 30 minutes, but I guess I talked too much, and plus when I did the deorbit burn, I brought the
You are
PA
clear
down a
to
bit too
land.
much. Eeks.
1,000, 900, 800, 700, 600.
Oh my gosh, I'm stalling.
500, down. 400.
Boy, this landing was terrible.
300. Warning, gear is down and locked. 200. 100, 75, 50.
That was
30,
terrible.
15, 7, wheels down.
That was bad. Landed on the side of the runway if I hit it at all. But that was just a little fun flight. I don't have a lot of time in the XR5, so that's actually one reason I wanted to do this particular flight, was just to get a little more hands-on time with the XR5. Just take a quick look at this here. We don't want a pad. I guess this is most useful if you want to land on a pad or something. So yeah, I don't see where it shows like the runway. Okay, good to know. All right, well, if you like this video, please do hit the like button down below, leave some comments, more importantly, and check out my FAQ. If you don't know about that, I've got a frequently asked questions. The link for that is in the description all the way at the bottom. I also have a Facebook page. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and I will see you in the next video.